Sup guys, this is EcBoy, TeamCalamity. I'm really tired for some reason. Um, this is gonna be a video on triggers in Cardfight Vanguard. Pretty much because I see a fair amount of people not really understanding triggers and their mechanics and applications in decks. It isn't as simple as 8 crit 4 draw 4 heal in every deck. You have to know how to vary it up and the applications of certain triggers when you want to run some more than others. So this will just be a video on that. Firstly, this is also trade confirmation for CFV FTW1. I got the Juggernaut smiley face. So congrats to me on my first trade of this channel. I think the SC did some trades earlier on, but this is my first one, so hopefully I'll have many more. Alright, so yeah, triggers. First, I'm just going to explain what they do. The stand trigger isn't sleeved because I don't use it in Oracle Think Tanks. Stands. They're so disgusting. But, yeah, firstly, you've got the stand trigger. All the triggers add 5,000 power when they're trigger checked. It's compulsory. You have to add 5,000 something, and you have to apply the effect. So you have to draw, have to add crit, have to stand, have to heal, if you can, obviously. So yeah, with the stand, it's just if you have a rested unit, then you stand it. Simple. Only really useful when you drive trigger check it. So it's the same as crit. And it's got 10k shield. Then heal trigger. You're only allowed 4 in a deck because it's so good. If your damage is equal to or higher than your opponent's, get to just take a damage, put in the drop zone. So obviously very good. Can save your life. The amount of times I've just had an anime moment when the heal trigger's on top of your deck and you're on 5 damage. I'm like, oh, damage, you gotta check. Then it's a heal trigger and you win. That happened like 3 times at my locals last time I went. It was so funny. But yeah, heal triggers are good. You can only run 4. But why wouldn't you run 4 heals? Just you have to. Then draw triggers, add 5,000, draw a card. Simple. Only got 5k shield, which is pretty much because the card replaces itself, so it would probably be unfair for it to have 10k shield. But whatever, it's got 5k shield, 5k attack, so you can boost with it and it won't be too terrible. Most of the time you'll just ditch it for Vanguard and stuff like that. And then the critical trigger, which is you get to add 5,000, and then the critical there just means how much damage it inflicts, so you get to inflict 1 more damage. So when are you ever going to use these? The standard lineup that you get from a starter deck. So again, the trial deck lineup, I'm not recommending this, but that's just the way that some people play, is 4 of everything. So, you know, you have a wide variation there. But most of the time, obviously, you run 4 heal. That's just no question. You run 4 heal. But then with the other 3, you tend to run basically between 2 of them in order to max out the consistency of them. Because believe it or not, triggers affect the deck a lot. You have to play 16 of them in a deck. That's almost a third of your deck. So that's quite a lot. And it actually changes the way the deck runs. So why play draws and crits? Why don't you play stands? Well, firstly, you play draws. Draws are good because it helps to dig through your deck faster, gives you a bit of draw power, and gives your deck more consistencies. This is more important for decks that haven't got the ability to tutor out their own cards. So say if you're playing Dragonic Overlord the end or something like that, you will want the Overlord and the pieces in your hand. So because of that, you'll probably need to play more draw triggers in order to get into those pieces. An example in the English metagame I would say is Lawkeeper Kagero, because for Lawkeeper Kagero you want I actually have the cards. I should probably get them out to show this as an example, but I'm not gonna. Lawkeeper with 8k boost, or depends on the matchup, but probably 7k, 8k boost behind it. Then Dual Axe with the same kind of boost behind it. Now you can search out one of them, but how are you gonna draw into the other three? You'll probably draw into one or two, but you know, draw triggers just help you dig into stuff, help you to get the fields that you need. So yeah, if your deck doesn't tutor the cards and you want it to be more consistent, then draw triggers is a way to go. Critical triggers are good because they put more pressure on the opponent in terms of it makes your deck more aggressive. So these are better in decks that are more passive. So for example, Oracle Think Tanks, just because with Oracles you have Tsukuyomis. I mean, Tsukuyomi with Milk will be swinging for 21, but a lot of the time, like, you might not even be playing Milk. You might be playing Blue Eye and stuff like that. So you won't be swinging for ridiculous amounts. Silent Tom needs an 8k in order to hit for 16. So, you know, that's not too difficult to guard. And, yeah, just in general, OTT haven't got the means to hit for high numbers and put pressure on the opponent at this point in time. So because of that, critical triggers are very good in a deck like that, because suddenly, you know, you just check into a crit, you get the power, but it also puts more pressure on the opponent to guard. They have to guard, especially if it's on like a Tom or something, and then that'll force more cards out of their hand. It just makes it easier for you to inflict damage to the opponent and to win the game. Another example, I don't know, I would say like Murakamo, is that it? The ninja ones where they can like special summon, Superior Call, wow, a bunch of themselves, but they have low attack value. In that case, critical triggers are good because when you attack, it's fairly easy for them to guard due to the low stat values of your guys. So you know, crits will help in that case, because suddenly they have to guard the attack, and it's harder for them to do it. Now most decks will just run these, so I don't know, depends on the deck. Stands, the thing with stands is that basically stands are alright, they aren't amazing. Most people are like, ugh, stands, why would I ever use stands? It depends on the deck. The thing about stands is that it forces more cards out of the opponent's hand, because like, let's say I attack with my Vanguard, right, and they null guard it. Let's say that my other rear guards have attacked, right, and I check into a crit. That's it, that's all my attack's done for the rest of the turn. Nothing else is really gonna happen. If I check into a stand and suddenly one of my rear guards is standing again, that's attacking, forcing more cards out of their hand. So it's decent if your deck, if you just want to force more cards out of their hand, and in that sense put more pressure on the opponent, because you aren't like hitting for extra damage with the crit, but at the same time you're still putting pressure on them to guard, then that's good. Also, if your deck gains effects from attacking, then stand triggers are pretty good. So the most obvious example I can think of is Aqua Force, because their effects rely on it being the third or fourth battle of the turn. Obviously, the only way you can get into a fourth battle is by having stand triggers. So, you know, you'll, let's say I have the Vanguard, the one that needs 3 attacks. So you attack with your 2 rear guards and then attack with that, because if you don't, then you're bad. And, check into a stand, there's a guy that, if it's the 4th or more attack and it hits, you get to draw a card. So something like that. It just puts more pressure on the opponent, forces them to guard. Even things like grapplers, like, I know that it's the stereotype to play stands in grapplers, but it's actually pretty decent, because again, you're just putting a lot of pressure on the opponent's hand to guard, because otherwise they'll take damage. Where in the case of crits, it's more you directly try to inflict damage to them, and thus, they have to guard. So, yeah, stands aren't good in a lot of decks, just because crits tend to outclass them. But the way you build your deck will affect the way it runs, and that mainly comes down to triggers. If you do this kind of lineup, so say, I don't know, 4-8-4, which, you can, there's nothing wrong with it, your deck will be retardedly aggressive. So you will always be just putting pressure on them, hitting for high amounts, forcing guards out of their hands. It will be a ridiculously aggressive deck. But at the same time, you'll be losing a fair amount of consistency. So your deck has to be ridiculously consistent if you want to try and use a lineup like that. I guess grapplers could pull off something like that, but I don't know. Not to my taste personally. Something like I'll do the standard one last. Something like this is cute, I guess. It's a cuter version of that, which is the standard, but it could work. Again, just forcing cards out of their hand. You get the consistency from the draw triggers, so it's not terrible. It's alright. Depends on the deck. Probably Aquaforce might have a lineup like this. And then there's this, which is the standard. So I'll get on to talking about the standard lineup. A lot of people, when they build their decks, instantly go, okay, 8 crit, 4 heal, 4 draw, I'm set. Oh, my watch is going off and my phone's going off. Yeah, I'm set. That's it. Time to win some games. Honestly, it depends on the deck, because sometimes you will want more draws. Well, not necessarily more draws than crits, but just more draws than the 8-4. So for example, again, Lawkeeper Kagero, I would be more inclined to play 6-4-6 or 7-5 or something like that, just because the deck is slower and you're already swinging for high numbers, so you're already putting pressure on the opponent to guard, so there's less need for something like a crit. You need to get draws in the early game in order just to dig into your cards. While with this, you might run more crits, like maybe even 10-4-2, I don't know, something like that in a deck that really just wants to hit hard, put pressure on the opponent, and doesn't need the draws for consistency. So that could be, I know that you can't play that in Gold Paladins at the moment because there are only 2 crits, but if the 3rd crit for Gold Paladins came out, you could probably see that. In Royal Paladins, you can see that lineup as well. I think that's how it's played in Japan, actually, with 10 crits, other than Majesty Lord Blaster, I don't think, because that has the crit on itself. Decks like Arkle Think Tank with Tsukuyomi, just because the threat of the critical trigger with the trigger stack is a lot more than the threat of the draw trigger. Plus, you draw enough already, you've already got that consistency, and the ride chain is fairly consistent as well, so draw triggers are less important. And even something like Goku Kagero, like the difference between Goku Kagero and Lawkeeper Kagero in that sense in trigger lineup is that you would probably play more crits in Goku, just because in Goku you're swinging for 16 with Goku Babai ammo. That's like the standard attack to make. So that's like, they can't break the 20k barrier unless they use Executioner, so they aren't putting as much pressure on the opponent as with Lawkeeper or Overlord the End once that comes out. So thus you would want more crits in order just to give the opponent something to think about, a reason to guard. So yeah, hope that all made sense. Hope you all won't just go, stands a bird, gonna play 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal in every deck, including Aquaforce and Dimensional Police, and well, yeah, maybe Dimensional Police, I don't know, and just win all my games. No, like I say, you should test pretty much every trigger lineup that you can, just to see how it feels. You learn the strengths and weaknesses of the deck, you learn how things work, and even if something like just doesn't seem right, like stands in Oracles. Ugh, stands in Oracles. Why would you ever play that? Just give it a go. there's no harm in trying, and it might actually be good, but stands aren't that good. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. This is EcBoy, and I'll see you around.